Jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga ki Jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnav Vrinda ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravachantamanapethyam Apetya Krityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Achuhava Putreti Tammayatayo Taravo Vinirustam Sarvabhutam Ridimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripamayi Tvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanaravindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Paratram Tato Mamanasti Katyana Chapi. I first of all offer millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om, Asto Tarasarashishi Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om, Asto Tarasarashishi Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada. And all the Vaishnav and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, Dandavat pranams. Jai. So, yesterday we had something of an introduction to this fourth canto, and we talked about the sequence, and I described the current going through the first canto, coming into the second canto with the appearance of Shukadev. Then at the end of the second canto, the 10 subject matters, Atra Sargo Vishargas Cha. These are very sweet to be familiar with, these 10 topics. There's the creation by Krishna, there's the creation by Lord Brahma, then there's the sthanam, the resting place, where is it all resting on? And then there's Poshana, Krishna's mercy to his devotees in the form of Ajamil in the 6th canto. Then there's Uttaya. This is the creative, passionate activities that are even described as coming from Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu was very creative. He had all the demigods in his hand. Remarkable pastime. And then there's the Manvantaras and the Katha about the Manvantaras. And then there's Nirodha. This is detachment. This is principally in the 11th canto. And then there's Mukti. This is also described, liberation is described within the pages of the Bhagavatam. And finally the Ashraya, that support for the entirety of existence, which is Sri Krishna. So this is the Bhagavatam. This is the heart of the Bhagavatam. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written one very beautiful verse describing Krishna, the gopis, the Bhagavatam, and Mahaprabhu. Because remember yesterday, I was describing the 5 explanations of Satyam Paramadimahi. Do you remember? Vaguely. Okay. Anita remembers everything. Crisp. It's good. So, there were 2, because Srila Gurudev also gives his gift of what is the Satyam. Satyam Paramadimahi means the essence. It's no good reading this, because today is a very amazing, remarkable, sensational pastime, explosive pastime today. But it's no good just sitting there like it's some sort of story time, because it is a beautiful story. And that's part of the crafting of the Vyasadeva, is to captivate our minds with the color and the drama of the pastime, because some of us are quite dull, some of us are quite sleepy. We need something like a zap to wake us up, right? Not right? Right? So Vyasadeva, he gives these very powerful pictures, images of this other world, these other worlds, Swaga. So, and then that was the first Satyam Paramadimahi. And what is the one that Srila Gurudev gives? Who remembers? Mahaprabhu. Thank you. Yes. Brahman, Narayan, Madhurya, Radha Krishna, Bhakti. Got it? The Brahman, the impersonal Brahman is what most people think. Brahman, yes. No, Brahman. That's what I described yesterday. Most spiritual groups are focusing on that. Gurudev includes Radharani in his 5, but I'm just saying Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's. In Gurudev's 5, it's the Brahman. Yes, but when we think of Gaurahari, when we think of Mahaprabhu, we only think of Radha, because he's coming, he's Krishna wanting to taste Radha. We would not understand anything at all about Rasa Tattva without Mahaprabhu. So we will not understand this Bhagavatam at all without the Kripa of Mahaprabhu. Because I was thinking today, this pastime about Daksa and Sati and Virabhadra, very powerful drama like that. But where is Mahaprabhu in there? Where is this essence? Where is Krishna in there? And I understood that actually Mahaprabhu is everywhere because he is the goal. This is where it's leading to. Without taking the gift of Mahaprabhu, which is the holy name, you will not understand significantly or deeply really anything. It'll all be quite superficial. But the more we chant, the more significant everything becomes. Everything becomes. If we chant 8 rounds, we'll get 8 rounds worth out of it. If we chant 16 rounds, we'll get 16 rounds of worth. If we chant 32, we'll come to a very sweet level. If we chant 48, we'll come even more serious and sober. 64, it's life and death. 64, you can really hear the words of the Bhagavatam. Without this chanting, without this gift. So this is how Mahaprabhu, his Nishta, is influencing us in our practice. Because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is giving the goal as bhakti. That means our devotion. This is what the Bhagavatam is to inspire, our devotion. Bhakti Devi. Now he gives this very beautiful verse. Aradayo Bhagavan Brijeshak Tanayas Tat Dhamma Vrindavanam. That's Krishna, the son of Nanda Baba. So he is the essence to be worshipped. And then Ramya Kachit Upasana Vraja Vardu Vargena Vakalpite. Who is worshipping Krishna in the most excellent form? The Radha Ramanis, the gopis. That love is what we are aspiring to serve and follow. When Mahaprabhu comes, he comes in the form of his own devotee. And he loves being a devotee. Mahaprabhu, Krishna, loves his devotees. So he loves taking the role of his devotee. He loves enacting that pastime of being his own devotee. He worships his devotee. He's Bhaktavatsal. He worships. So what to speak of a higher, more inspiring place for Krishna to become than his own devotee? He completely relishes it. Being his own devotee, glorifying Krishna, glorifying Radha. This is Mahaprabhu. So in this verse I'm saying, by the way, in the Shloka book, there's a little footnote. It says, if you don't know this verse, you're not really a disciple of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Aradeyo, who to worship? Aradeyo, Bhagavan. Who is that Bhagavan? He's the son of Nanda Baba. And then who are the Upasana? Who is worshipping that son of Nanda Baba the most? The gopis. This verse has everything. And then the third line, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam, Amalam Prema Pramatonata. This is the fifth goal of life, is the Srimad Bhagavatam. What you have? Dharma, Artha, Karma, Moksha. These four goals of life that Vyasadeva was principally writing in all the previous Puranas. We discussed that yesterday. I think it's very relevant that we just touch on the history each day, because it gives us the body of the Bhagavatam, where we're going. I'm not just going to read some pastime and story out of context with the whole Bhagavatam. We have to see what is the gift, how splendid, how extremely special. And then the final line of this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Matam Idam Tatradaro Naparaha. That this is the opinion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So for all of us, we've come under the shelter of Mahaprabhu in this birth. Such a tiny little window frame. If you look at just the one day of Lord Brahma and the one night, there's only this little frame when Mahaprabhu manifests, very small. And he's giving Rag Mag Bhakti Loke Karite Prajan. He's giving us the key, the entrance for Raganuga Bhakti. This was never given previously. Previously this was not available. Nobody desired it. You can't get anything unless you desire it. Everything comes from your desire. Ultimately, what is the qualification for Raganuga Bhakti? It's greed. So it's this chanting, this process that we do, getting up in the morning, coming for Mangaladi, all of this is to inspire our enthusiasm, our greed, our rag. That is the purpose of living in Vrindavan. The dust itself pours into our hearts and gives us this rag, if we are open to that. It's this greed, this desire. So this desire was never present previously to the advent of Mahaprabhu. When Krishna was on the planet, who could understand his pastimes? Very few. Very, very few. But Mahaprabhu came and he just blew open the whole box, and he gave all these jewels by demonstrating it in his own life. Because you can say so many words. Lots of sages and preachers and prophets can come. But when you see the demonstration of it, when you see it activated, then it resonates a lot more significantly, doesn't it? When you actually see that person as his own devotee and the ecstasies that he experiences, particularly in Puridam, when he was manifesting that whole Vipralamba Leela. So we must be conscious today, even though we're going to read about Krishna's great devotee, Vaishnavam Yata Shambhu, Lord Shiva, the greatest devotee. So we're hearing about this pastime with the full acknowledgement of the greatness of Mahadev, Shankar, this Lord Shiva. There's a beautiful verse I was reading today in this very beautiful little book. And this is saying, Lord Shiva told Parvati, in the first period of Kali Yuga, Lord Janardhan, the distributor of the holy name, will appear in Navadvip, Dham, from the womb of Sachimata, and save and empower the souls by means of his own holy name. O Parvati, he consistently appears to me that Sri Krishna and Sri Krishna Chaitanya are non-different. This is an example of the meditation of Shivji. He's meditating on his divine master Sachinandana Gaura Hari. So this is where we can appreciate the current that Gurudev is giving us in his beautiful book, that Srimad Bhagavatam, Secrets of the Bhagavatam, that Gaura Nishta, or Gora, is the final essence of the Bhagavatam. So this is where I was appreciating this morning, that this is where we pick up with Mahaprabhu. So we have Bhakti Devi is always there. Bhakti Devi is my devotion. Right? It's not separate, it's the Jiva's heart. Right? So yesterday, just to bring us up, we described that halfway through the third canto was the manifestation of Swayambhuva Manu and his wife Satarupa. And from Manu, all progeny has actually manifest, because it's from his daughters, Devahuti, Akuti, and Prashuti, and their husbands, and their daughters, granddaughters, etc., etc. They have contributed to the entire population of the planet, coming from these two personalities. So our thread in this fourth canto is following along in the dynasty, in the line of Swayambhuva Manu. And today we're going to speak about Daksha, who was married to Prashuti. You're back into the Narayana.
No, because normally when we hear Narayana, there are two incarnations of Krishna.
Yes.
Then here you mentioned it is Narayan, Rishi. So what was
Narayan and Nararishi, yeah.
Yes, so then there was
No, it says one. Sorry, if I said it yesterday too. It says, it says two. The Supreme Lords, plural, Narayan, so Nara and Narayan, thus worshipped and praised by the Devatas who had received their glance, departed for Gandhamana hill. And then these two portions of the Lord have entered Krishna and Arjuna, because this is referred to in Bhagavad Gita. It's... Huh? When Krishna and Arjuna manifest, then Nara, Narayan, Rishi have already come within the body of Krishna, and Nara is already in the body of Arjuna. This is like their second incarnation from there. You should follow this question right through to the very end, because I know you haven't been satisfied yet, and you should do the research on it and find out what is actually, ask different people, and this is how we make progress. When we have a question and we go down, 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 and we can come up with remarkable gifts to share with the world. Because it's a nice question, I know it is. I understand. Okay, so today we're talking about the husband of Prashuti, who married Daksha. So we're in the same Swayambhuva line. Now I'm going to read today. I hope you can stay awake while I read. Now please, somebody was telling me, Kishori, yesterday, that I was mentioning to you yesterday that I don't like to preach so much, I like to teach. But Kishori Mohan was saying that Gurudev said he liked to share. And I think this is even a nicer expression. So if I'm sharing, that means you should reciprocate. And you should ask me questions if there's something that is not clear, because by your questions you're going to add to the overall understanding of everything. You might think your question is insignificant or not important, but for many people it may be very important and pertinent, and it may just trigger something that is explained that otherwise is glossed over. Yeah. They are the rishis that are born from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma has many sons. So these sons like Angira, Parvati, Narada Muni, Kadama Muni. Kadama Muni is actually manifesting from the shadow of Lord Brahma. And he marries Devahuti, the first daughter. And then Akuti Who is she marrying, Anita? Akuti? She marries who? Ruchi. Yes, so Ruchi is also manifested from a relationship of one of Lord Brahma's sons. But he's a progenitor, Ruchi. He's supposed to progenite the species. So they're all coming from. But Lord Brahma, I was explaining yesterday, was quite dissatisfied because they weren't populating the planets sufficiently. And then when he was feeling despondent, then this divine couple appeared of Swayambhuva Manu and his wife Satarupa. And then they populate the whole planet. Very special personality. All the planets, oh yeah, all planets. I mean, there's 14 planetary systems, 7 above, 7 below. So all of these planetary systems have to be populated. Lord Brahma didn't make them to sit vacant. They were all meant to be inhabited. So all the inhabitants of those planets had to be manifested for the whole creation to be in flow. So Krishna can perform his pastimes here. He can't perform his pastimes because there's no demons on the demon planet, to churn the ocean of milk, etc. All these different amazing pastimes that go on. There has to be a population. Krishna likes an audience, because then it has much more significance. This is actually one of the reasons why throughout the Bhagavatam it's describing kings and great personalities. There's a very royal type of order, all the way, like Daksa, he's a progenitor, then Dhruva, he's a king, and then Prithu, he's a king, Prachinabhari, he's a king, and then Jat Bharat, he's a king, Rishabdev, he's a king. So people listen to kings. They listen to the authority of the nation, so to speak. So they listen, to something with, if it was just a Baba living under a tree, it wouldn't command the same type of attention that it does when you have a king of the whole planet, like Ambarish Maharaj, all these personalities. There were great saintly, Yudhisthira, great saintly kings. Who? Ambarish, yeah, I just said Ambarish, king of the whole world. I said. So, I'm going to read a little bit today. And stay with me, and if you get lost anywhere, please interrupt me, because I may just suddenly ask you a question, and if you have no idea, then why didn't you ask me the question? You understand? It's two-way street here. Okay, so Vidura, we know who Vidura is, the son of the maidservant, in the Kuru dynasty. This is coming from the Kuru dynasty. He's inquiring from Maitreya Rishi. Maitreya, remember, was there at the time when Krishna departed this world, when Krishna was sitting under the peepal tree, and all his family members had just been killed, and he was getting ready to depart, and Jara the hunter came and shoots him in the heel. And Uddhava has come to have a conversation with him. Uddhava couldn't stay away. He was told to go to Bhadragashram, but he couldn't remain away from Krishna. So he came to Prabhash to see Krishna, and Maitreya Rishi is there. So there's Maitreya Rishi talking with Krishna just before he leaves the planet. So this is the authority of Maitreya Rishi. This is who he is. When we, like Bhagavatam is very personal. It's all about personalities. We should take an interest in the names of these personalities and what is their history, because it will add to our appreciation so much more when you know the background about the personalities. Who is their father, mother, etc.? What is their relationship, etc. with Krishna? And how it all supports itself. It's all about, we only come into this world to remember relationships ultimately, because we've come from an impersonal place in the Tatashta. So the first thing we know is our mother's breast, and then we know mother's relationship, and then from there so many other relationships. It's about relationships. So entering into this Bhagavatam also is about our relationship with these incredible personalities. So Vidura asks, why did Daksha, who was affectionate towards his daughter, neglect her and show hatred to Lord Shiva, who is the best among the gentle? So he'd heard in the last chapter, we described that the 16th daughter of Daksa, Sati, was the wife of Lord Shiva. Although always engaged in the service of her husband, she did not produce a child with her good qualities, because her father was unfavorable to Shiva by showing anger. Though Shiva was faultless, she gave up her body through mystic trance before reaching maturity. This is a dramatic pastime. This is to show us many things, that in Svagaloka also you have problems. In Svaga also you have difficulties. In Svaga there's also quarrels. There's also contention. There's also principally envy. This whole material world that we live in is crackling with envy. It's full of envy. If somebody has something nice, they're looking at somebody else and that person wants it. I mean, life is like that all the way through. It's this competitive mood in material society is described as envious. That's the meaning of the word envy. So we're all like... It's synonymous with the competitive nature in the material world. It's like if someone has, sufficient, it's not enough because they want more than the person next door. If someone has a car and then the next door man gets a bigger one, then they want a bigger one than that. It's like this competitive spirit is really strong, isn't it? In the material world, they call it the upward mobility. They're always trying to do more than so they can feel superior to somebody else. And then they're feeling inferior to somebody. So there's complete imbalance in the world where we live. Understand? Yeah.
I have a question about envy. And in a sense, like when you see the lineage of the demon Kali, there's a lot of personalities that are generated from, you have greed, anger, being birthed from this.
Right.
And it seems like in a lot of time in these processions of people that some of them are like personification.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Yes.
How do we understand that in terms of which ones of these are like almost like metaphors versus like personalities?
No, they're personalities, Prabhu. They are personalities like adharma and greed. As you're going to, this is going to come in this part we're going to read now. Actually, this is where.
They're people, but they're personifications.
But they are the personification of that negative quality.
So when other people like take on that quality, they're
Yes, we're taking on a part of that personality. That personality takes on a very form, like Kali Maharaj himself, like hypocrisy and quarrel. He takes on, that's what he's made, that's his atmosphere, that's who he is. We take on those same qualities when we associate with the objects of Kali in this world, the gold and women, etc.
Okay, so we're understanding that when you have a person like Dharma or something.
Yes.
There was no Dharma or Ruchi before that personality appeared?
There was Dharma, of course, there can never not be Dharma. Dharma is always there, but he comes in his personified form. It's like death is there, but the personification of death is Yamaraj. That's the personification. Actually, it's not Yamaraj is the Lord of death, but death itself has a personification. It's not easy to appreciate. Coming from a rational, intelligent background, it's very hard for us to accept these apparent metaphors and allegories, But nevertheless, as we read more of the Bhagavatam, we were discussing a little bit yesterday about the 5th canto where it's describing the planet actually is flat. But who can understand that? By your external experience, it seems to be round. You can fly from New York across the Pacific and around across the Atlantic and you're back in New York. It seems to. So the illusory world gives it the impression of something which it's not. So because we are in illusion, but to answer your question specifically, these qualities are manifesting more significantly from these personalities. But these personalities are already there in embryo, in subtle forms, like adharma. Dharma is already there. There's already a mood of that. But it becomes, personified.
Just like Sati herself, she is an she takes birth
Yes.
at the moment.
Yeah.
But she always waits for it.
Yeah.
And she's fundamental to the Holy Universe. She does not give nothing of beauty.
Yeah.
So we have to wait until the moment that personification
That's nice.
comes.
Understand, yeah.
Inside that play,
Yeah, yes, correct. correct what he's saying. It's already there, like the mother of the universe is already there. But when she actually takes her birth as Sati or Parvati, Bhavani, etc., she becomes in her personified form. And she's carrying the entire strength of that personification. It's a good question. Thank you. Then Vidura's continuing, who could hate Shiva, guru of the whole world, without enemies, who is peaceful, satisfied in himself, and the great deity of the universe? And this verse, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is commenting, this is from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's comment. He gives the reasons why Shiva should have no enemies. Maitreya said, in a former time, great sages, devatas, other sages and fire gods assembled with their followers at a sacrifice for the creators of the universe. This was a very significant occasion. A huge sacrifice of all the creators of the universe. These means the sons of Lord Brahma. The sages saw Daksha enter like the sun, shining with luster, making the large assembly free from darkness. The assembly, along with the fire gods, except for Brahma and Shiva, rose from their seats, influenced by the radiance. It's also saying in another place in here that actually when a senior person enters the room, the junior must stand up, because the senior person actually has an influence on their life heirs. And unless you stand up, you don't really keep your sensibilities together. You have to stand up to keep your life heirs in balance. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining that, like it's a physical thing as well as it's become like etiquette. But that's what we do when a special person comes, we stand up, just so that we can maintain our life heirs. So Lord Shiva doesn't have to maintain his life heirs that way, nor does Lord Brahma. Being welcomed properly by the leaders of the assembly, Daksha, offering respects to Brahma, guru of the universe, sat down with Brahma's permission. Before Daksha seated himself, he saw that Shiva was sitting and had not respected him by rising. He spoke with harsh words while gazing at him with eyes which were ready to burn him up. He's doing this out of envy, it's going to be described. He's envious that Lord Shiva is more potent than himself. This is called envy. And it can consume one. It consumes the whole world. We have a country is envious of another country. A leader is envious of another leader. And then we have families envious, etc. It's all the way through this disease. O Brahma Rishis, Devatas and fire gods, hear the words I speak about the conduct of the gentle. I do not speak out of ignorance or hatred. He's saying that, but of course it's not true. Being shameless, Shiva has destroyed the fame of the protectors of the planets, because the most proud Shiva has polluted the path followed by the well-bred. He has accepted himself as my subordinate by marrying my daughter in the presence of fire and brahmanas, posing as a well-bred person. Having married my daughter, who has fawn-like eyes, the monkey-eyed rascal has not given proper respect to me with even words, though I deserve the honor of persons rising and addressing me politely. So rude. Really. I don't even like to read the words. Though not... Huh? Yes. Yes, because he's producing so many, and he has such a big aura. This is all these lessons, so many lessons in the Bhagavatam, even though they have a story through it, but we see the philosophical understanding. Though not desiring to do so, I have given my daughter to a person who does not perform rituals, is impure, is proud, violates the rules of conduct. This is like giving the Vedas to a Sudra. Naked like a madman, sometimes laughing and sometimes crying, he lives in filthy places like crematoriums, and surrounded by ghosts and demons, wanders about in horrible places of the dead. Using crematorium ashes as his bath, he ornaments his body with a garland of skulls and human bones. These skulls on Lord Shiva are all the skulls of his previous wives. he keeps them there in remembrance. Well, this one's Bhavani, this one's Sati. He has them all on his garland. That's who they are. He likes to be with his wives all the time. Ornaments on his body with a garland of skulls and human bones. He is inauspicious, though he has the false name of Shiva. What does Shiva mean? It means all auspicious. That's the name, the etymology of that. He is insane, dear to the insane, the leader of leaders of the insane, the leader of the most ignorant. He's really lost it, hasn't he? Big time. Requested by Brahma, I gave Sati to this unclean lord of the insane, who has an impure heart. Maitreya said in this way, criticizing Shiva, who remained there without hostility, Daksha, sipping water, began to curse him in anger. The lowest of the Devatas, Shiva, should not receive a portion of the sacrifice along with the Devas, like Indra and Upendra. O Vidura, in spite of the opposition of the assembly, Daksha released his curse and, filled with anger, left the place and returned to his own house. So that's the beginning of the pastime, the cursing. And then, upon understanding that Shiva had been cursed, Nandishwara, Ishwara means Lord, Nandi is the bull. This is because we stay in Nandagram. Nandagram is the head of Lord Shiva. So we call it Nandigram. You understand? And there's a beautiful lingam of Shivji. So, but it's Nandishwara, the Lord of Nandi. Lord Shiva's principal follower, with red eyes and anger, cursed Daksha and all the Brahmanas who had tolerated Daksha's curse of Shiva. He who, identifying with the mortal body, offends Shiva, who is non-violent, will become a fool, seeing in terms of different bodies and rejecting the Supreme Lord. These are the curses that Nandishwar, he does to Daksha. That person attached to cheating rules of household life, with a desire for material happiness, his intelligence spoiled by misleading followers of the Vedas, will become totally absorbed in karma kanda. So this is the curse that actually falls on all the brahmanas that are there. He says, let Daksha, who has forgotten the spiritual goal because of accepting his body as the self, who is excessively attached to women, like an animal, immediately take the head of a goat. So this is what's about to transpire. He actually gets the head of a goat. The curses are suitable because he takes ignorance in the form of karma as knowledge, and he is foolish. Let those who follow Daksha, who insulted Shiva, take repeated birth and death in this world. These are strong words. And then he goes on cursing. And then it's saying that when Nandishwar had spoken, this is the bull carrier. Lord Shiva, meanwhile, is just sitting, absorbed in trance. He's absorbed on the Supreme Lord. So this is another lesson we take from here, that even if you're insulted, you remember the Lord in the heart and you maintain your relationship with that plane of consciousness, and understand these are all very temporary activities that are going on that you don't have to pay so much attention to. When Nandishwara spoken, Brigu, hearing the curse, uttered a Brahman's curse in response on behalf of the Brahmanas, which was difficult to avoid. He said, let those who take vows to satisfy Lord Shiva and their followers become heretics and be obstacles to the genuine scriptures. Unclean, foolish, wearing matted locks, ashes and bones, may they take initiation from Shiva and then worship intoxication as if it were a deity. Because you criticize the Vedas and the Brahmanas, which act as the institution to support mankind, you will take shelter of heretical views. So we see sometimes today, these curses are for all mankind, they for all time. When these Brahmins, they utter curses, they have amazing effects because they really manifest. So we see today many of the followers of Lord Shiva, they do all, they smoke their ganja, they worship the intoxication. Many of them don't know philosophy at all. They're quite degenerated, and they're quite heretical also because they're not putting Krishna as the Supreme Lord. They're actually worshipping mystic opulence and things like that. You see this in the world today. Many followers of Lord Shiva are like, and it's coming from this curse of Bhrigu. It's the same place coming from the line. And then they lose the Vedic edge. They lose that cutting edge with the Vedas. Then he goes on. Maitreya said, while Bhrigu was cursing in this way, Shiva, in a morose mood, left with his followers. O Vidura, the creators of the universe, after performing sacrifice for 1,000 years in which the Supreme Lord was the best of those worthy of worship, and taking their Abhirabha bath at the confluence of the Ganga and the Yamuna with purified minds, departed for their respective abodes. So it's interesting to note that the rest of the Brahmins at that sacrifice, even though that had been completely dishonored by Daksha and Nandishwa in their cursing and counter-cursing, still they all remained. All these thousands, hundreds of thousands of persons, they all remained for 1,000 years and finished the yajna, because they actually put Krishna in the center of the yajna. So it's saying that they were satisfied with purified minds at the end of it. They carried on. They didn't stop and all go home. So it's one lesson here also is that sometimes a leader may appear just like Guru appears, but then when Guru leaves, it doesn't mean everything has to completely slide into oblivion. It means that others have to come and take that role. So things must continue, things must carry on. So the Brahmanas, they carried on with the yajna for 1,000 years. And now it's described in the 3rd chapter about Sati. Considerable time passed. Are you okay listening to me? Not going to sleep? Good. Considerable time passed as the father-in-law and son-in-law continued their enmity. Nothing was resolved. When Daksha was appointed by Brahma to be the chief of all the Prajapatis, who were the progenitors of the population, he became very proud. Daksha, performing a sacrifice named Vijayapaya, then began the best of sacrifices called Brihaspati Sava, surpassing the followers of Lord Shiva. So now Daksha wants to do it again without Lord Shiva. At that sacrifice, the Brahma Rishis, Deva Rishis, Putris and Devatas were present along with their wives. They were worshipped, and then they worshipped along with their wives. The wife of the Brahmana is very much an important part of the yajna. Both sides have to be both principles of the male and female genders have to worship the object. There's speciality in both. Hearing from the mouth of the gossiping Kecharas in the sky about the great sacrifice, so they have gossipers up in the heavenly planets also, about the great sacrifice being held by her father, and seeing near her house the wives of the Upadevis with darting eyes, fine cloth, attractive earrings, and nishkas on their throats, mounted on their airplanes, going there from all directions along with their husbands, she spoke with longing to her husband, Lord of the ghosts. So Sati is seeing all the personalities going to this sacrifice. Sati said, "A great sacrifice is being undertaken by your father-in-law Daksha. Since the Devatas are going there, let us also go there, my noble lord. This is my request. My sisters, along with their husbands, will certainly go to the sacrifice. Desiring to see my friends along with you, I also desire to accept gifts offered by my parents." So now she's bringing in the family aspect. Lord Shiva, filled with longing, for a long time I desire to see my sisters along with their husbands, my aunts and my mother, who has great affection for me in her heart, and to see the best among all sacrifices performed by great sages, like a flag among sacrifices. And then she carries on beseeching her husband, "O Shiva, without material conditioning, see also other ornamented women going in groups with their husbands. O Shiva with a blue throat, the sky is decorated with their flying airplanes, white like swans. Please grant my desire, O Lord, since you are merciful, and you should do this being full of knowledge. You have accepted me as half of your body. Therefore, being requested, please oblige me. So then she beseeches her husband greatly, and then finally Lord Shiva begins to speak. He says, Shiva said, "Dear wife, what you have said is correct. Uninvited friends go to their friends. If those friends do not see faults because of anger or strong pride caused by identification with the body, one should not go to the houses of persons who have disturbed minds, who will look at the guests with crooked minds, raised brows and angry glances, while considering them to be their relatives. Injured in the limbs by arrows fired by enemies, one does not suffer much and can sleep. However, injured by harsh words uttered by relatives who have crooked minds, one suffers day and night with a distressed heart." Interesting. External injuries don't really affect us as much as the pain in the heart when someone criticizes. This is why we have to button our tongues and not criticize, which we have these habits of taking relish in. It's just a phenomena of the age. But we have to try and purify that. O beautiful-eyed wife, it is clear that you are the favorite of Daksa, this is Lord Shiva, Daksa among all his daughters, because of your excellent qualities. That is my opinion. However, your father will not respect you, since he is tormented by your relationship with me. Anyway, huh? Yeah. He's advising her that she's not going to be respected in her father's house because of her relationship with him. So he's advising her, "Dear wife, therefore you should not go to see your envious father, Daksa, who raised you, and you should not see his followers. He scolded me with harsh words when I went to the sacrifice of the creators of the universe, though I was innocent. If you ignore my words and go, you will not attain good fortune. When a person who is most worthy of respect is humiliated by a relative, then that humiliation will immediately result in death." So he's telling her not to go. Now Sati, she has such a strong desire ordained by the Supreme Lord. This is Yogamaya. She wants this situation to manifest. We're so convinced that actually everything I do is my own free will. We don't realize how the modes of material nature are manipulating all of our lives completely. We have some independence, but Krishna is actually arranging the overview of the mastermind of everything. So Maitreya said, having said this and understanding for certain that she would be destroyed, whether he prevented her from going, or even if she went, Shiva became silent. Sati became divided, desiring to see her relatives. She left the house in fear of Shiva, and then she returned to the house. She didn't know what to do. She went out, then she came back again. And she still didn't know what to do. She so much wanted to go, but she had understood the words, of course, of her husband. Her body shaking, Sati, crying out of affection, agitated with tears, upset by the obstacle to her seeing her relatives, glanced with anger at Shiva, who has no equal, as if to burn him up to ashes. Breathing heavily, with heart afflicted by grief and anger, Sati, her intelligence bewildered by her womanly nature, left Shiva, dear to the saintly, who had given her half of his body out of affection. She went to the house of her father. Many times we see today in the world that if the woman becomes angry, the husband just says, okay, take it, he'll cave in. But here we see Lord Shiva doesn't. He retains his opinion and just remains separate. Thousands of followers of Shiva, headed by Mani, Mat, and Mada, with assistance of yakshas, putting the bull Nandi in front, in great alarm, followed Sati, who was moving swiftly all alone. Placing her on the bull, appearing splendid like a sarika bird, a sarika bird, a ball, a mirror, a lotus, white umbrella, fan, and garland, as well as accompaniment of songs with flute, conch, and drums, they proceeded. So now Sati has all her material desires fulfilled, because a whole retinue is actually going to the yajna. Out of fear of Daksha, none of the people received her when she arrived, except her mother and sisters. With love and tears of affection, they embraced her in joy, though she had not been respected by the others. Because of not being welcomed by her father, she did not accept the seat, gifts, and worship offered with respect by her mother and sisters, along with her sisters' suitable talk and questions. Seeing the sacrifice devoid of any offering for Shiva, she understood that the disrespect for her in the assembly was disrespect to her Lord Shiva. She became angry, as if she would burn all the worlds. By her command, she stopped the ghosts who were ready to kill Daksha, and heard by the whole universe, with words choked with anger, she condemned Daksha, enemy of Shiva, who was proud of his efforts at sacrifice. Sati said, "Who except Daksha would hate Shiva, who is without an enemy, the cause of the universe, to whom the soul of all beings there is no superior in this world, and who neither hates nor favors anyone? O Brahmana, saintly persons see that faults are capable of being transformed into good qualities, and see good qualities, not the faults. You are the opposite. The best persons magnify even meager good qualities in another. You only see others' faults." Actually, Gurudev has said that the pure devotee only comes to this planet to ever see the good in everyone. That's the only reason why the pure devotee comes here, is just to see the good qualities in everyone. We should cultivate this wonderful quality of everyone has good qualities, and we should cultivate that quality of seeking them. So this is what Sati is reprimanding her father. "Therefore I shall not maintain the body produced by you who have criticized Lord Shiva. It is said that the purification for eating poisonous foods by mistake is to vomit it. The mind of the great sage enjoying the self does not follow the rules of scripture, since he is beyond those rules, just as the path of the devatas is different from that of humans. Therefore, situated in one's own dharma, one should not criticize the dharma of others. That is the rule." And then she very strongly berates Daksha. Maitreya said, after speaking to Daksha in the sacrificial arena, sipping water, dressed in yellow garments, Sati sat down on the earth facing north. Closing her eyes, she entered the path of yoga. With proper asana, pure Sati merged the pran and apan into one. And then it's described how through the Astanga yoga process, she lit this blazing fire internally. Desiring to give up that body which Shiva worshipped by the great souls, put on his lap repeatedly with great respect, Sati with anger directed to Daksha and with a controlled mind began to meditate on fire and air in her limbs. Meditating on the sweetness of his lotus feet, of the lotus feet of her husband, the Guru of the universe, she did not see anything else. Her body, whose identity as Daksha's daughter was destroyed by the fire of Samadhi, suddenly lit up in a flash. Ah, a great cry arose from those in the sky and on earth who saw Sati burn up. Sati, dear to Shiva, had given up her life because of anger of Daksha. Intolerant Daksha, violent to Brahmanas, will gain great infamy in the world because hating Shiva. He did not prevent his daughter when she prepared to die because of his neglect. So now, while the people were talking in this way, the attendants of Shiva, seeing Sati's astonishing death, stood up with raised weapons to kill Daksha. Seeing how swiftly they were approaching, powerful Bhrigu offered oblations in the southern fire with hymns from the Yajurveda to kill those who destroy sacrifices. When Bhrigu offered them oblations, the Ribus who achieved Soma by austerity arrived quickly in the thousands. So magically these personalities just came out of seemingly nowhere by the mantras to protect the fire sacrifice. Attached with firebrands by the Ribus who were shining with the light of Brahman, all the ghosts and Guyakas, followers of Shiva, fled in all directions. So I'm just going to synopsisize now to balance, because we've actually reached our time. But at least we've listened to the words of the Bhagavatam describing these scriptures. I can tell the story in a much briefer way, but it's nice, I thought, to actually hear the direct words of the Bhagavatam. It's very powerful to hear this vibration. So now what happens when it's actually Narad comes, it's saying, hearing from Narad that Sati had died because of being insulted by Daksha, and that soldiers had driven away the Ribus who rose from the sacrifice, Shiva now became angry. Now Shiva has a purpose to his anger. It's not uncontrolled anger. It's directed at the envy of Daksha, who is representing Lord Brahma as being a progenitor. It's like a teacher sometimes can show anger. It's not emotional anger. It's directed anger. It's quite different. It's with a purpose. So in his anger, Shiva, with locks of matted hair, biting his lips, snatched a hair which blazed terribly like fire or lightning, and becoming ferocious, he stood up, laughing and roaring loudly. He forcibly threw the hair on the ground. From that hair, a huge black figure that touched the sky with its body, having 1,000 arms, projecting teeth, eyes, bright as 3 suns, hair like blazing fire, appeared wearing a garland of skulls and holding various weapons. Have you seen that painting of Virabhadra? Anyone seen, remember? I looked in the Bhagavatam that you gave me. They don't have it in this version. But in some versions, there's a beautiful painting, Ram Prasad did it in Australia, of this Virabhadra, massive form. And he's the one who manifested from the jati, from the locks of Lord Brahma, of Lord Shiva. Virabhadra with folded hand asks, "What shall I do?" Shiva, Lord of the Ghosts, said, "Kill Daksha along with his sacrifice, O Rudra. Kill in battle. You are my chief portion." So this is a portion of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva doesn't have to go himself. So what happens now is that Virabhadra, he leads all of Shiva's followers to the sacrifice. And let me see. I'll read this part. The people in the sacrifice, they could see all the dust on the horizon, and they would think they didn't know what all this dust was. It's saying the winds are not blowing. It cannot be thieves, because King Prachinabhari is describing that. They thought it was like, they couldn't understand who it was, the women. Virabhadra, along with Shiva's associates, who were short, reddish and yellowish, with faces and bellies like makaras, holding various weapons, running everywhere, quickly surrounded the sacrificial arena. Some of the associates broke the beams, while others destroyed the women's quarters, the assembly hall, the kindling house, the sponsors' quarters and the kitchen. Others broke the sacrificial vessels, others extinguished the fire, others urinated on the pits, and others tore up the earthwork around the fire pits. Others harassed the sages, while others shouted at the women. Others caught the devatas who had fled nearby. Maniman tied Bhrigu Muni, and Virabhadra tied up Daksha. Chandesh tied up Pashu. Nandishwara tied up Bhagu. Then it's going to be described. After seeing all this, what Virabhadra does, he pulls the moustache off Bhrigu, Rishi. This means he pulls it off in such a way that it'll never grow back again, like scalping. Like when Ashvatam was scalped, it's not that it's just going to grow back next week. It's like scalped for life. You know, the hair comes out the root. So his moustache was actually taken off. And then he pulled the eyes out of Bhagu, who had been looking, very rudely with his eyes, who had fallen on the ground. And then then he pulled the teeth out of Pashu, who had been laughing. And then Virabhadra, sitting on the chest of Daksha, though trying to cut off his head with a sharp sword, could not separate it from the body, because Daksha had many mantras on his body. He couldn't be cut. And then finally, seeing the device for killing animals in the sacrificial arena, Virabhadra then cut off the head of Daksha, who had become a sacrificial animal using that device. So it's like a guillotine. There's a guillotine for sacrificing the animals. So this Virabhadra put him in the guillotine and then chopped his head off. And then, seeing Virabhadra's action, the ghosts and demons expressed their satisfaction, while others expressed grief. Angry Virabhadra offered the head in the southern fire, setting the sacrificial arena on fire. He then departed for Kailash. So this is quite a remarkable situation that takes place. Then all the devatas, they go running to Lord Brahma. Oh, how shall we appease Lord Shiva? What shall we do? Then Lord Brahma says very kindly that Lord Shiva, he's very easily pleased. He has a very gentle, soft heart. He's easily angered and he's easily pleased. Ashutosh. He's very simple like that. So they desired that the revival of the sacrifice should take place. Because understand, the whole backdrop of this is they're doing a sacrifice for Lord Vishnu. They know that this is the dharmic activity of humanity, that they have to perform these yagyas. We are performing our yagya by chanting Hare Krishna. That is our dharma for this age. We are supporting this yagya sankirtanam. This is the yagya for the age. So previously, the devatas and all these creators, they understood what is the purpose of life. The object of life is to please Vishnu. So these are the residents of the higher planets. So they would spend their time but it had become quite ritualized. It wasn't just like sometimes our chanting can become ritualized. We have to remind ourselves, what is the purpose of our chanting is to inspire affection and devotion to Krishna. The medium to connect with Krishna is only love. It's love that will connect us with the Lord. So that love has to be inspired in the heart in a very pure way. Guru will guide that very restless heart to the path of love and affection, because it's love and affection which will get through like that porthole, so to speak, to connect with the Lord. And that love is inspired by performing the yagya of chanting Hare Krishna, remembering Krishna. The soul becomes inspired by that sacrifice. There's a reciprocation with this sacrifice. We know when we chant, we start to feel well-being, we feel joyful, we're satisfied. So that when that joy is transformed out of its perverted reflection into ourselves, but actually to Krishna, when we're seeing Krishna as the object of our joy, Krishna as the object of our affection, then bhakti yoga is achieved. So this is our path. So they come to Lord Shiva and they beseech him very much with so many prayers. And there's a beautiful description in this chapter of Kailash and the wonderful, sweet, amazing atmosphere. The forest was so beautiful, and the pools and the flowers, etc. There's a lengthy description, many verses describing, because this is like an extension of Lord Shiva. He lives in this very mode of goodness, tranquil, incredible place. And then they beseech him with many prayers, and then finally Shiva says, to revive the incomplete sacrifice of Daksha stopped by you, in which the bad priest did not offer my share, Oh, so that you can receive your share. So Daksha is still, Lord Shiva, he knows that the motivation for the demigods is actually, it's called Sakam Karma Yoga. They're doing their activities because they want some pleasure from it. They're not Shuddha Bhaktas. They're not pure devotees, even though they're doing the yajna, but it's not entirely, it's doing it for Krishna externally, but actually there was a motivation behind it. Just like sometimes we chant Hare Krishna because I want to be happy. It's not focused always sufficiently because I want to know what is pure devotion to Krishna. You understand?
I don't understand why Krishna was receiving the animal sacrifices. I don't understand the human sacrifice later in Srimad Bhagavatam in terms of all the demigods were pleased and said when the human sacrifice occurred. I mean, if this is under Karma Kanda, what were the shastras for the human sacrifice and the sacrifices?
Understand?
Would be the proper offerings.
But the sacrificial animal is an older animal generally, and it is rejuvenated with new life by the power of the Brahman's mantras. It's not that the animal loses its life. The animal actually gets another life. He increases his life.
Right then and there?
Yes, right there. It's not at all. This would show the prowess of the Brahman's mantras. If the mantras were not sufficient, like what happens in Kali Yuga, is that they were doing these animal sacrifices, but because their mantras had no effect, they were actually ending up by eating the animals. And that's when Lord Buddha manifests and says, preaches the philosophy of ahimsa to the Brahmanas, because they had been abusing this sacrificial opportunity just to take meat, to take flesh. This is not the purpose at all. Brahmins would never consume flesh, but they would show the power of their mantras by rejuvenating that animal of that horse or that whatever the creature was that they were actually, the goat that they were sacrificing. It wasn't at all with any ulterior motive until it comes into the age of Kali, and then it becomes degenerate, and then it becomes degraded. And that's when Lord Buddha advents, specifically for this purpose, to stop this diabolical situation and show the path of ahimsa. And it's quite interesting that today that most Buddhists, they eat meat because they're not actually following Buddha avatar, they're following Sakasingha Buddha, they're following the second Buddha. They're not actually following the original Buddha. I mean, the whole concept and precept of Buddha is to show the philosophy of ahimsa, non-violence. And here you see them all with meat on their plates, complete quarrel and hypocrisy. But it's not that anyone's just killing. And human sacrifice would be the same. The animal would become rejuvenated. There wouldn't be any flesh. No. The animal would get like a new body invigorated by the mantras of the Brahmanas. This is my understanding. Huh? His old body would become rejuvenated by the power of the mantras. So there wouldn't be. And if when the animal dies, like today, you can buy mridangas that are ahimsa, that they've used from the dead cow, etc., or they will use those, the skin and the body of the animal after the animal has died. There will be animals that eat the flesh, and sometimes the Kshatriyas also would eat, but they would hunt. That's a different thing altogether. This is my limited understanding. If someone tells me something more, I'm very happy to hear. I don't know all these rituals so well, but if someone understands more.
The fire becomes holy, and Agnidev manifests. When the animal goes in and starts burning, Agnidev produces a new body, and the animal comes alive and young out of the fire from the flame.
Beautiful, beautiful.
It's not immediately. It's inside a pool of fire.
Very nice. Thank you. You should always sit beside me and tell me these things. It's very good. Thank you. No, it's good. It makes complete clarity. I didn't know that. I'd heard that before, but I didn't remember all these things. So many things. How many things can we remember? Everything. He's saying that Daksha should get life back, but with the head of a goat. And Bhaga should get his eyes. This is what they're asking for. And then Lord Shiva, he agrees, and but the way, just let me find. Let Daksha, whose head has been burned up, have a goat's head. Let Bhaga see his portion of the sacrifice through Mitra's eyes. This is now chapter 7. Mitra. Mitra is his friend, is his partner. Let Pashu, through the teeth of the sponsor of the sacrifice, eat through the teeth of the sponsor of the sacrifice, or let him eat ground meal, because he's got no teeth anymore. So Lord Shiva is not going to give them all what they want back. He's going to retain, their punishment, so to speak. Otherwise, they'll just forget about it after a year, and they'll just run around enjoying life again in an envious way. Let the Devatas who did not give me the best share have their limbs restored. And then Lord Shiva makes all arrangements for everyone to be satisfied and pacified, and they all at this time, now they're all very respectful to Lord Shiva because they've seen his amazing power, and there's just no question of who's superior at all. So this whole pastime is actually glorifying very beautifully Lord Shiva, as well as Krishna as being the recipient of the entire yajna. So we're keeping the thread here. You understand? It's not just getting lost in the story. So now Daksha, he offers beautiful prayers for begging forgiveness from Lord Shiva. Of course, Lord Shiva forgives so much. And the assembly, they also beg forgiveness from Lord Shiva. And then again, they commence the yajna, and then Lord Vishnu is very pleased with the yajna, and he appears in these pages, and it's very, very beautiful description of the Lord was dark in complexion with a golden belt, a crown shining like the sun, having a face surrounded by locks of hair, black like bees and wearing earrings. He appeared like a lotus, since he was holding the conch, lotus, chakra, arrow, bow, club, shield, and his gold ornamented hands. So this is like a very Aishwarya form of the Lord, manifesting from Vaikuntha. Or this is Vishnu himself manifesting from that plane. So Vyasadeva, he's introducing us very much into the personality of Krishna on these pages. This is all a prelude, remember, to the 10th canto, to the sweet childhood pastimes of Krishna. This is where we're actually coming to. So this is a most important aspect of this, describing on his chest was Lakshmi and a garland. He gave delight in the whole universe with his elegant, smiling, sweet glance. At his sides were a fan and a chamara like two swans, and above his head was a white umbrella, shone like a moon. So now Krishna, or Vishnu, makes his appearance here, and then all the sages, they all glorify him very beautifully. It's described how the prema bhaktas, they glorify him. They say, our minds, like an elephant burned from a forest fire and afflicted by thirst, became absorbed in the sweet pure river of your pastimes. Do not remember the fire of samsara, and do not come out of that river, as if having merged in Brahman. So the prema bhaktas are saying that they never want to leave this darshan of Krishna. It's so sweet. And they feel like their samsara has totally been destroyed. So this is the Bhagavatam. Agni offers respects. All the different devas, they all offers respects. And then after Vishnu, the well-wisher of sacrifice, was glorified, the wise Daksha restored the sacrifice spoiled by Virabhadra. O sinless Vidura, the Supreme Lord, the soul of all beings, the enjoyer of sacrifice, pleased with his share of the sacrifice, addressed Daksha as follows. The Lord said, I am the supreme cause of the universe, the Lord and soul, the witness of self-revealing. I, Brahma and Shiva, are non-different from each other. Situated in my energy composed of the gunas, creating, maintaining and destroying the universe, I take on names according to the activities. Then he speaks here. My devotees do not see any difference between himself and all living beings, just as a person does not differentiate between himself and his various limbs, such as his head or his hand. We don't criticize the hand as being a part of my body or the legs for being a part of my body. You know, there's no envy there in my own bodily, so why should there be envy of other people? This is very beautifully the way he's speaking to Daksha like this. Maitreya said, being instructed by the Lord, Daksha, after worshipping the Lord through specific sacrifice, worshipped the devatas by main and subsidiary sacrifices. So then the sacrifice is completed, and Vidura finally says, I heard this story of Shiva, destroyer of Daksha's sacrifice, from the devotee Uddhava, disciple of Brihaspati. O Vidura, the person who, after constantly hearing Vishnu's and Shiva's pure activities, which give fame and long life and destroy piles of sin, narrates the story with devotion, destroys all his sin. So this is the benediction for reading these pages. The direct benediction is like a direct jewel, a direct gift you will get from reading these pages. So every day we should touch on the Bhagavatam. This is the principal reason for me coming, to encourage us all to take deeper, more significant shelter of the Bhagavatam. This is really what our acharyas have all encouraged us to do, and what is the purpose of our life. We have to chant, and without the reading and without taking the Bhagavatam, where are we really going? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Sorry I've kept you a little late today. So it was a long story. I didn't think I was going to make it through it, but somehow by Krishna's mercy.
Shiva taking Sati's body and her body parts going all across the land. You know, he goes so many places. It's her eye, her ankle.
That's not in here, is it? No, that's another part. And she's asking about all of Sati's parts, how they spread. I've read this before. I can't remember the whole pastime. But what I do remember is her next birth as Parvati, as the son of Himalaya, and Meena. And there's a beautiful description of that in the Ramayana, or the Tulsidasa's Ramcharit Manas, how Shiva comes to the house and takes Parvati again in her next birth. But I don't remember all that pastime. But it's too late now. We've gone 25 minutes over our allotted time. But maybe you can tell us tomorrow briefly, because I don't know. There are many Puranic stories that are perhaps not directly about bhakti. Many of the Puranic stories are more embellishments, and they have karma kand overtures and gyan kand, accents on them. They're not entirely bhakti, but Bhagavatam, what is it? Dharma projita kaitavatra paramar nirmatsaranam shatam. The second verse is saying there's no cheating here. It's going to give you the direct goods. So sometimes these other pastimes are not actually entirely direct goods. They're just an embellishment on the story, which are nice to hear, but not as a principle. Jai. It's really late. Go on. Krishna Varnam Tuisa Krishnam Sango Pangas Prasam Yagya. Yeah. I was there last year when they were doing it every day in the streets of Delhi. It was very exciting. It was very, very wonderful to do. Whenever we have the opportunity to perform Naga Sankirtan, we should take it with two hands. It doesn't come every day. Whenever we have that opportunity, we should do. That's nice. Yes. Nam Sankirtan, Naga Sankirtan ki jai. Gold Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.